The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists Ben from BTC IoT,
Jemai Nastar.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor. Still muted.
I'm still on mute. Sorry about all this. Geez. I forgot my saying now. Okay, no coiner.
Josh Gagala from Vaultoro.
Howdy ho, folks.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1. Crypto scam exit? According to Bloomberg, the magazine, not the presidential candidate, a Chinese crypto scam known as Plus Token is currently exiting the market and may be responsible for the recent Bitcoin price drop. The alleged pyramid scheme promised returns as high as 600,000% and guaranteed investors would be rewarded for inviting new users. An estimated 25,000 Bitcoins have been sold, with around 20,000 waiting, allegedly in more than 8,700 unique addresses. Ben from Wales, I ask you, could this purported Ponzi provide for Bitcoin's recent decline?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a huge amount of Bitcoin. I think they amassed, was it 1% of all Bitcoin with the plus token scam? But I think the real interesting thing is the sort of timing. So I know, I think it was in the past 24 hours, they moved $105 million worth of Ethereum. And they've been dumping Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it has been pushing the price down. I think Chain Analysis said it's definitely contributed to the volatility of Bitcoin's price and to Ethereum's price as well. But we've seen a drop in both of those. But I would say that, you know, when you talk about guaranteeing hundreds of percents worth of return and these sort of easy referral programs, it doesn't help. But, you know, just I can't help but think of something like Hex now, and I think the two are kind of interlinked almost. That, you know, Hex has been the most successful thing on the Ethereum network after CryptoKitties, and is providing a lot of liquidity into Ethereum. And if you've got a lot of Ethereum that you want to dump quite quickly, then now's probably the time to do it while there's all this liquidity out there. And that would also probably point towards that, you know, the Bitcoin's price has declined, Ethereum's price has declined because of this dumping. But it would point towards, you know, if Ethereum's like when the Bitcoin went up, that was people buying Bitcoin so they could on ramp onto ICOs pretty much. So if we've got lots of people buying and using Ethereum to be able to onboard onto the Hex thing, then that's going to push the price up, even though you've got all that downward momentum from Plus tokens. So I don't think Ethereum's reacted anywhere near as much as it should have from the dumping, and I think they know that, Plus token know that, and that's why they're dumping or planning to dump Ethereum now, or have been dumping Ethereum. So yeah, no, it's going to have a massive impact on the price on Bitcoin, and we just got to kind of ride it out. This stuff happens, you know, but now they are, you know, dumping those Bitcoins. They are going into the hands of more people, so it's helping Bitcoin become more decentralized, which is good, or the ownership of Bitcoin at least.
Dan Eve.
That's an interesting point, actually, Ben. I hadn't thought about that before, about the fact that even though, you know, it gets swallowed up, it then goes out and gets distributed probably even further. So, you know, that's kind of a side consequence, which is quite, you know, it's bad, but a bad situation, but at least there's some good out of it to a certain extent. But it does look like from the graph that when Plus Token, they were arrested in China, what was it, right at the top at 14? Like I think they pointed out on the Bloomberg article. So it does seem very perfectly timed with the start of the dumps. And if they've been easing out since then, but we'll see. Hopefully the halving will counter that, since we're less than 180 days now away.
Josh Kagala.
Yeah, what Ben said is really true about the redistribution. Greed redistributes things a lot of the time, and a lot of people don't realize that. In fact, I used to work for one of the richest guys in Australia, Kerry Packer, and he was a media mogul and like Murdoch, and he really one of the richest people in the world, I would say, as well. Now, he died. His son was left this massive fortune. He decided, right, greed, yeah, more, and decided to build all these casinos through through Asia. And of course, I mean, he blew a lot of money, and none of them worked. A lot of them, like, I don't know if all of them failed, but the vast majority of them failed. Now, all the people that make the carpets, the walls, the painters, the poker machine creators, all of those people, of course, naturally got paid. This is the good thing about greed. And I don't want to be like the 90s greed is good guy, but really, at the end of the day, that's what happens, is that these people get so greedy that they want more, and then it gets redistributed. But it's very, very unfortunate. At the same time, I don't want to celebrate that idiocy, but at the same time as talking about it, this is you can never underestimate the power of a solid Ponzi. It's I mean, if you look at OneCoin and how massive it was, filling stadiums, guys. And I remember looking at that, just being flabbergasted at how many idiots there are out there. And again, why shows like these are so important, because it helps educate the masses about what a scam looks like before they fall into it and redistribute their own wealth.
We looked at, well, we spoke about Hex last week as well, didn't we? And just before it hit the markets, and what it's now 1-2 Satoshi, Bitcoin Satoshi. And have you seen the tweets coming out from the account? It's like, hey, do you know when something drops 90% and like you could 99% that you can double your money if it's on 1 Satoshi? You can get up to 800% if it pops. You're like, what? That's crazy, man. Like this, it's a cruel world.
Well, once you start scamming, you just keep going with it. It's an impressive number that Ben cited, 1% of all Bitcoin, something like that. It's an incredible amount of Bitcoins we're going to see re-enter the market. As Josh was saying, if these people were so greedy, they were promised 600% returns, and they didn't see anything wrong with that. It's kind of a caveat emptor, buyer beware type situation, I'd say. So
yeah, the problem, like with all scams, this is the problem, isn't it? It's the vulnerable people are the ones who suffer. So the ones who actually do lose their money, they're the mums who are just trying to get ahead, or they're investing what little money they have into something, just trying to get a little bit ahead of it. It's not the clever guys who've got money. I mean, obviously they do also lose money and they fall for scams too, but generally these scams, they target the vulnerable people. And like Josh said with the BitConnect thing, like there are videos of the plus token auditoriums which are just absolutely rammed full of people. Chinese, this is a big China scam. We didn't have any of it really going on over here. Then you can see videos of, like,
very unlikely that the Wall Street bros got injured in this. It was probably more of a normal people trying to get ahead. And like Dan was saying with not Hex but OneCoin, and Josh was saying, they used to have huge meetings, and Krista Rose and Junseth actually went to one of them and filmed it, and it was like the greatest infomercial you'd ever seen. The guy said something. He said, I know it in my knower that OneCoin is going to the moon. And they were also very sure that Ruja was going to double their coins in November because she was going to take the database or the Excel spreadsheet or whatever it was, and she was going to change a 2 into a 4, and a 4 into an 8. She was going to double your coins. And it wouldn't necessarily double your value because they're doubling it to everyone. So it does seem these scams do keep coming. They're more and more organized, more and more preying on the disadvantaged, people without information, people who are desperate. And then now what we're seeing is kind of a country by country rollout. Reminds me of that classic book, something Adventures of an Economic Hitman, something like that. And he would go country to country for the World Bank, and he would get these countries to take bad loans, and they had no choice. They had to take the loan. Now we're going country to country and scamming people on Bitcoin-like things. So
how you educate people against these scams is interesting. So like historically, we've always just kind of been regulated and protected from these sorts of scams, but now we're exposed to them, and we have to learn, and be able to differentiate between what's legitimate, what's not legitimate. I really like the kind of the Swiss. If you ever go to Switzerland, like, you'll notice there's a lot of public information, warning you about, swimming in that river, for example. They won't ban you from swimming in the river, which they might do in the UK. They'll say you're not allowed to swim in that river. It's illegal, it's against the law, whatever. You get fined. But In Switzerland, they'll just have lots and lots of just information saying, if you're going to swim in the river, do it this way, be very careful, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's very similar with what we're seeing now with people having access to all these financial tools they haven't had access to before, and they can be easily fall prey to scam, is that it becomes, responsibility of large society just to educate and just for people to learn, rather than, regulation is just, it doesn't go anywhere with these people. They've made the money before they regulation falls on them hard.
Yeah, they got in fast, in out.
Additionally, we're still looking for Dr. Ruja from OneCoin. Still looking. So if you see someone that looks like Dr. Ruja, maybe alert the authorities, because she's probably on a beach somewhere spending other people's money.
She's been
Moving on to the exit question. Forced prediction. The price of Bitcoin this time next week. Ben from Wales, higher or lower?
Down, man, down, down, down. I mean, like as he said, they ditched like 25,000, and they still got another 20,000 to ditch. So yeah, we're going down, but it's good. It's good news, like for those hodlers and for the people who've got a little bit. What's that thing? The Austrian people, the time preference stuff. If anyone who's got a bit of that and they're a bit patient, then they know that there's all this downward pressure from all this huge amount of Bitcoin being sold off, and that's pushing the Bitcoin price down, which means that as soon as it stops, then whoosh, we go with halvening as well. Brilliant.
And you're definitely going to see news like this Ponzi scheme selling on your technical analysis charts. It's going to pop right up. It's going to say Ponzi scheme selling ahead. You better watch out. No, it's not. It's not related. You have to have both. You have to be more than one thing. Dan Eve.
I think it's going up. I'd like it to go up because it's the day I go on holiday, so I want to be in a bloody good mood.
Josh Gagala.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. The hodlers. Yeah, I guess if you've got some cash, if you're sitting in that filthy fiat, then it's probably good if it goes down. And if you're not, then hold on for dear life.
Oh, it's a great time for a crash. Everybody's rolling in the money around Christmas time. It's not like we didn't just spend all our money. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'd like to say it would go higher, but this Ponzi scheme is pretty tough to shake. If there really is that much supply on the sell side, it might go lower. Moving on to issue 2, Hong Kong funds frozen. The democracy protests in Hong Kong continued this week, with the Hong Kong police freezing more than $9 million in funds raised for a group that supports the protesters. Previously, the police froze an HSBC bank account belonging to the nonprofit Spark Alliance. Freezing the account for the police was as simple as picking up a telephone. Dan Eve, is it time for demonstrators around the world to stop fooling around, wasting their time losing funds, and start adopting Bitcoin?
It makes perfect logical sense. I think after all the deplatformings we've seen, 2019 was probably the year of deplatforming. I mean, obviously, you've got iconic instances, the classic WikiLeaks and Satoshi saying, don't announce it yet because it's too early on. But I think it's the perfect vessel for receiving donations that you aren't going to get confiscated. Now, obviously, you still run the risk of losing your private keys and blah blah blah. But it's just seems to be the safe way to raise money and to be able to support yourself without having risk of any government or outside interference. But you can do that with Laurel as well. I'm just not promoting or anything, but I'm just really excited because there's the Doji edition coming out soon, so that will give you financial self-sovereignty for yourself. Sovereignty.
I agree with Dan. There are technical issues with Bitcoin, but the ability to not be harassed by the government make up for the technical issues. I saw someone recently arguing on Twitter the opposite, and it made me really sad because I had to unfollow him. And I really liked Hong Kong Hermit. He's a good dude. He's been doing good coverage of the protests, but he's an avid anti-Bitcoiner, and I just couldn't take it. He was just making fun of the idea. And then someone else said, oh, it's going to destroy the earth with all the mining. If you just times it by 1,000, we'll be spending 1,000 times more on mining. And it was just, no, technology doesn't work that way. The processor in my computer is thousands of times faster than my old processors, and it's probably smaller and uses less heat. That doesn't make any sense. You can't just times it by 1,000. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on the protests and the money?
How dare you, Thomas? How dare you? So he unfollow. Yeah. Yeah. 9 million isn't exactly super rich, but it's a lot of money. But I just want I'm saying that because to be super rich is actually extremely dangerous, and it's only dangerous if you are against the people that you're sort of in the country that you're mainly staying in. So if you're Russian and you're super rich, the Russians own you. If you're in China and you're super rich, the Chinese own you. Because even though these people can pepper some of their money around the world, generally the guy that owns Alipay, for instance, is absolutely in the palm of the Chinese government. Because they own you, and if you go against them, they just rob you. Now, 9 million is a heck of a lot of money. I'm not just saying, oh, it's not super rich. It's a heck of a lot of money, and just to trust that in one bank account is madness. Is absolute madness, especially if you are going up against a force so powerful as the Chinese government. I mean, why wasn't there any foresight in this decision to have at least split it up into some different bank accounts? I did the same thing. I don't want to pick on Tether, but 2 bank accounts for $2.8 billion. All the government needs to do is, sort of get the shits and think, this isn't for me, and frozen. Boom, done. So yeah, it's nuts that they trusted that much money in bank accounts.
If you're going to keep that much in your bank account, you better have a really good PIN number.
Only put that much in only hold so much in fiat that you're willing to lose. That's, that's sort of the old Bitcoin tag, but it's starting to ring true for fiat.
Ben from Wales, can I get you a bank account?
I mean, maybe that's what they were doing. Maybe that's their kidnap fund, and actually they've just got massive fat stacks of Bitcoin. Maybe we're all like judging them too fast. Maybe they may have got a lot of donations in Bitcoin. Of course, it makes a lot of sense for them to receive donations in Bitcoin. And then hopefully if they did, then the reason we haven't heard about that being seized, because, it's quite hard to seize, as we all know. But then that does rely upon your donators to be able to have Bitcoin and to be able to interact with Bitcoin, which is like another layer of friction currently. Obviously it's surmountable, but if you're just trying to get donations through the door and you're sort of day to day, then maybe it's not the sort of top of your priority list. Maybe it is now, I suppose. But one of the big problems they've had in Hong Kong is the restrictions on internet. So they have tried to use Bitcoin in some scenarios, and it's become quite apparent that using Bitcoin without the internet's a bit shit. So the real things which should be worked on now are the mesh networking. So a lot of the Hong Kong guys, and they use what's it called, Bridgefy, which is an app for messaging, and that uses Bluetooth to create mesh networks. I did on World Crypto Network a mesh series, and it makes you realize how incredibly powerful mesh networks can be and will be. And there's some really good work being done by the Freifunk guys in Germany, in Berlin, where they connect routers together just by reflashing the routers with some different software, and then those routers can connect to other routers, and they've got a fairly substantial network of routers. So that's a good way to be able to transmit information. And it's kind of like, when you think about the progressions you had in medicine or in, I don't know, the combustion engine during the World War II. If you look at these democracy protests, and then it's going to propel innovation in these things, in things like mesh networking, which we really should be spending a lot of time looking at and working on. The only problem is there's currently not much of a financial incentive to do it now, so there's not much sort of company money behind it. But when you have these protests like that, people need to communicate information and communicate value, then they will start looking more seriously into mesh networking. Only saying that, Bridgefy is a company, and that has provided an app so for there people are able to download and use. So maybe this is an area which more companies can pour capital into. But yeah, no, it's the meshing thing which needs to be fixed. And then
I read today that Apple are looking into or have made hires around putting satellites up so that, you know, the eventual Apple network will be 100% standalone. So I'd imagine all data and stuff all linked. So and they're pretty good with privacy, you know, aren't they, Apple? So hopefully they will be able to keep that outside of the midst of le gouvernement.
That seems more
Yeah.
like a move against the phone companies. Apple just wants to be their own carrier, have their own
Well,
satellites.
you don't.
Oh, sure. But the more of these networks there are of people doing that, the more at least the authorities will have to play whack-a-mole as they can shift to another, you know.
We don't. Having done my mesh networking stuff, honestly, it's so powerful. Like we don't need big companies, big internet service providers, and that kind of infrastructure. We can, you know, sustain the internet on a mesh network, but we need to build the thing. But it's very powerful, and the stuff's really cheap. Like the microcontrollers I used are like £1 each, and they can send a lot of data between each other. So no, it's really exciting to see developments in that field.
Yeah, during the Napster days, we built a mesh network in Sydney that reached all the way from North Sydney down to Bondi, if anyone knows Sydney, and that was basically Pringle packets with Wi-Fi antennas pointing at each other.
Nice.
It was really rudimentary, and it meant we could share MP3s. Not that I did, just theoretically, and it was, yeah, like Ben says, absolutely powerful. And I don't know why it hasn't taken off. And I think it's these precipices. It's like Elon Musk stepping up and saying, you know what, screw it, I'm building an electric car, and forcing the hand of electric car or of car makers to turn electric. Now we have VW converting most of their, I mean, you know, they also had the scandal of the fuel scandal stuff, but all of this equals change. It's these moments in time where all of a sudden you get huge change, and I feel that this is coming. You never know what it looks like, but you know, if there is software out there where people can easily flash their modems, it really is that clip of, you know, the first follower clip. If anyone's seen that, you know, it's a classic internet meme, and you really need that moment where one person does it, then two people, then four, and then it gets boring being on the crap internet, that you actually flash your modem and take the time to learn, because there's just better content on the other modem. There's no one left in the crap internet.
Sounds like a dream. I do agree that the back end of Bitcoin is so good for the protesters, having pseudo anonymity, maybe even more anonymity with the Lightning Network or through a mixer, having your funds be unfreezable, having your funds be generally at the same value. There's no fees. There's no kind of checking fees or anything like that. The price goes up and down, but the funds 0.1 or whatever would be there. But I agree with Ben. We're not quite there on the other side. The interfaces are tough to use. The handhelds are tough to use. And then the internet itself is necessary. So until we have mesh networks, until we have easier to use Bitcoin wallets and things like this, it's unlikely that the protesters are going to use it, even though the back end is perfect for it. So there's this kind of chasm in between us. And we thought, you know, oh, Cyprus 2013, if only they just had Bitcoin ATMs, they would have, you know, been able to get out of this. And then now with Hong Kong, they probably have Bitcoin ATMs. They have people who know about it. They have technology people, but it's just not there. It's just not widespread enough yet. Moving on to the exit question. There are currently democracy protests going on in Hong Kong, Barcelona, and the United States. Dan Eve, which democracy protest movement will be successful?
Which of those three? What could they all be? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I think that Hong Kong's is very risky at the moment. Barcelona, I've not really read up on. Which one's the United States one's about against Trump? Is that what it's referring to?
Yep.
Well, you know, they've got through the impeachment, so it seems like, you know, but then there's the second layer to it. So I don't know, man. I think hopefully they're all successful. I don't know.
Josh Gagala.
None of them, because you can't protest against these things. They just laugh at protests. At the end of the day, let's be serious. They laugh at protests. The only way you can actually have change is technological change, and philosophical change, and change in the next generation of the children. by protesting, all you're really doing is I don't know. I don't mean to be this old man that's like, yeah, nothing works anymore. You know, don't get out in the street. It's great. Obviously, it's fantastic to be seen. Obviously, it's great to have numbers and it's an educational process, because without people's voices being out there. But I find that a lot of these protests have no real voice. I mean, if you look at the Occupy Wall Street movement back then, really, it was just a ramble of issues, and no one knew what it's all about, really. They knew that was this sort of flavor. What the flavor was about Wall Street, because the only reason was because it was in the name of the demonstration. But I feel the real change came when people started switching on to Bitcoin.
You're muted.
I had a good joke too. I said, I thought it was a housing movement. I thought people just wanted to move to Wall Street. They were going to occupy it. All right. Ben from Wales.
Yeah, no, I kind of dig what Josh is saying, I think. But I mean, I think it's important to take to the streets and protest. If there's something worth protesting for, it's very important that people do that and try and remind government that, you know, that they're there to work for you. But you know, obviously within Bitcoin, there's a lot of sort of anarchist feeling behind Bitcoin. And I'm also a believer in sort of direct action, which I think Occupy Wall Street was a little bit more direct action, as opposed to just protesting, which is probably why we remember it more as a protest than other protests which are happening at that time. So yeah, no, I think it's and you can do direct action just through, you know, what we do by trying to kind of opt out and support something like Bitcoin, which actually could change the system from a deeper level. Yeah, so it is almost like, rather than just, you have choices. You can either do nothing, which is bad, or you can go out and shout and scream and, you know, make yourself heard and your opinions heard, which is a bit better. Or you can try and sort of fix the systems which are there somehow in any way you can, and sort of try and, you know, have a more direct approach to it. And that's the anarchist direct action concept, really. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's happening as well in Hong Kong. It's just so yeah, good luck to them.
Well, I, for one, hope that the democracy movement in the United States will be successful, whether it's through impeachment and removal from office or simply another election, which is coming in November. I hope that the election is fair and free, although I have no reason to believe that, given the current condition of the voting machines, the gerrymandering, the knocking people off the rolls for polls, having voter ID laws, not allowing enough machines in low-class areas, things like this. There's a lot of ways to fix an election, and I think we're going to see all of them. Going back to the other protests and protests in the street, I agree with Josh. Occupy Wall Street was largely a failure. A lot of these movements don't seem to have any direction. What I always look for is organizing. When they had that first pink hat protest on the Trump days, I was like, that's great, but will they be back next week? Will they be back the week after that? Is somebody out there with a clipboard taking down names and emails, making a mailing list? And I don't think we saw that in Occupy Wall Street. We didn't see that with the pink hat protests, but we did see it in France. Every weekend they come back, the yellow vests. Same thing, Hong Kong. They keep having events. They keep having protests. They keep walking to parks, these kind of things. Putting your people into the street as a show of force has always moved governments. Whether we like to admit it or not, whether it was by force or by coincidence, things move when you get the people in the streets. So I look forward to these movements continuing. I root for the people of Hong Kong, Barcelona, the US, and maybe even Scotland soon. We'll have to see. Moving on to issue 3. Actually, first, did you know the World Crypto Network has its own audio podcast? You can listen to these episodes without having to look at me. How amazing. Check it out on Spotify, iTunes, and many other places where podcasts are listened to. The World Crypto Network audio podcast. Subscribe today. Issue 3, The Broken Promises of Silicon Valley. Those hoping for a recap of the series finale of the classic HBO comedy Silicon Valley will leave disappointed. Instead, we'll be discussing the promises of technology versus what we actually received. We were promised freedom and flying cars. Instead, we got advertising, tracking, and a shared ride with a stranger. Josh from Voltoro, what are your thoughts on the promises and the reality of Silicon Valley?
Well, it's not only Silicon Valley anymore. That's the good news. It's globally, and the hacker movement. That's what I'm most excited about. And you know, Ben here on the panel is one of the amazing people in this movement that are tinkering and playing with very dangerous technology, if you will. I think these are the promises that that will hopefully flourish. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We can pick on all the failures, but we all know how many startups fail and how many go up. And I love the fact that Silicon Valley has always been one of these places where people are willing to take a punt on an idea, and that's something that's still not that prevalent here in Europe. In Germany, it's very hard for people to raise money compared to in the States. And this goes for also the film industry. I mean, the film industry in Australia, for example, is not very. It's all funded by the government. There's not much private money, so that means there's all these rules. You have to have one Asian, one black guy, or one white. But like it's all, you know, there's all you have to. So the stories become very sort of similar. Whereas in the States, you know, if someone's some wealthy, yeah, I'll fund that film. That sounds great, you know, and they'll chuck some money at it. There's a whole different mindset in the United States, and I feel that that's not dead, and there'll be a lot more promises that will be broken, but there'll be a lot more cool ideas that will flourish too.
Ben from Wales, you're muted this time.
Yeah, no, it just needs to be free and open source. So you have, when you open up any market and you have a flood of capital, then a lot of people make a lot of money, and then they start throwing that money around, you know, willy-nilly, and then some money lands in good places, some money doesn't land in good places. And then you get a lot of that, you know, exuberance that like you get in kind of Silicon Valley. And, you know, with things like the internet and with these sort of big software giants, like it wasn't just a case of opening up a new market, like, I don't know, the British healthcare system, for example, and then lots of capital flooding into it. You're opening up a whole new plane of existence, a whole new world, like an extra layer of world on top of our world, the internet, which now has, you know, the substantial part of our planet's capital is invested within that realm. So obviously there was a huge flood of capital. A lot of people made a lot of money, and then a lot of that money was used in good ways, and then some of it in bad ways. Some of it was wasted, but it does eventually trickle down and find its way into the hands of other people. But I think for the going back to the Hong Kong protest, it's a bit like that the Vans thing when they had that competition for a Vans design. I think they were paying homage to the Hong Kong protests, and they weren't allowed into and all these people were like amazed that Vans, this cool company, that they weren't supporting the Hong Kong protests, which is, you know, China's where they get all their shoes manufactured. So why are they going to piss off the Chinese government? Like, why do you expect anything more from a private entity which is there for profit? No matter how cool they are, no matter how they may act like they're ethical, like, to be a good company, it's all about profit. It's all about making profit in any way you can, tax avoidance, whatever you can. And if you don't want to do that, cool. And if you want to be a bit more honest and forthright, cool. But the way to avoid all of that, to bypass all of that, is just free and open source everything, which is happening, but it's going to take time to happen. And then you have, you know, yeah, we just need to free and open source stuff rather than having it privately owned, and then we'll have more success with, well, like we were saying, the mesh networks, for example, for all this cool technology which could really radically change humanity. Bitcoin, you know, which can actually radically change humanity. But with Wikipedia, you know, just that sort of open copyleft mentality, it has far more profound effect. You know, it can offer some of those promises which Silicon Valley, you know, co-opted. So yeah, so just free and open source everything.
And 3D printing for the hardware side too.
Yeah, exactly. 3D print. So if you look at 3D printing, for example, like, that's such an epic technology, and it's been available for quite a while, but it's just kind of not. The actual, like, the 3D printer I've got behind me, this is kind of emerged from like a hobbyist community, from people literally building their own 3D printers, and eventually end up with a 3D printer which is half decent. And again, it's very powerful technology, and It'll make, when we can just all print our own stuff at home, it'll nurture a society of developers. So like, my boy, he'll download the latest schematic for the new, I don't know, Vans shoe, for example, and then in order to give himself some sort of social kudos, he's going to edit a file, and he's going to change it, and he's going to customize it, and we end up with this whole planet of engineers and developers and people building stuff. And then when we take control, I mean, we've got Congress in a couple of weeks in Leipzig, and when you go to Congress, you've got 20,000 hackers there, and it's beautiful, like what they do with technology, and it shows that when humans, rather than the technology, control them, when they control the technology, like it's very organic. It feels human. It doesn't feel like strange and alien and like coercive. It feels good. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, free and open source, and a lot of these cool technologies, they're reliant upon us users just to do ourselves, and not wait for the big companies to do it for us.
I do agree with Ben philosophically. We would have been in a much better place if these startups were all free and open source, if they were sharing tools, if instead of having to rebuild, say, a database for Chewy.com, they could have just used the old pets.com code. If they had just released that, Uber and Lyft could be competing for ride sharing code. They could be sharpening it, different effects being added to the database, more like a science project than a capitalist enterprise. But obviously, it's not a science project. It's capitalist enterprise. These people are all working on short schedules, trying to get their MVPs out, trying to compete with others. And if you're lucky, like say Facebook or Google or somebody like that, your project goes to space and you get 1,000 engineers to build in any direction you want. So it is interesting with these startups, but they have mainly delivered us things that we wouldn't have expected at the beginning of this. When you were a kid, you were told not to get in a stranger's car. Instead, I get in a stranger's car all the time. You're not supposed to stay at a stranger's house. With Airbnb, I stay in extra rooms of all kinds of strangers all over the world. So it's very strange to see how that's kind of flipped that with a little bit of a reputation system. And we don't even really have a unified, united big brother reputation system where you could say, oh, he's a bad Uber rider or he's a bad Airbnb guest. We're not going to give him a loan. When those things start to connect together, like kind of happening in China with the social scoring system, we're going to see, I don't know, a different side of the startups. We'll have to see. I'm not sure if it'll be good or bad. We'll have to see. Dan, Eve.
I thought this article was really funny, and the initial picture, I don't know if Silicon Valley, if that's a picture from it, but after reading the whole article, that's just like the author's mood, like the floppy unicorn, because he's really depressed that there's no flying cars and hoverboards and 3 seashells in every bathroom and that sort of stuff. So and I think what the biggest gripe is that whilst we've had all this incredible technological innovation in terms of packing stuff into an extremely heavy iPhone 11 Pro Max that you shouldn't read above you like that, and we've had loads of advances of that, the internet, telecommunications, but when you think about it, the real world or the visual world, the environment around us hasn't really changed a huge amount. I mean, sure, we got the Burj Khalifa and some incredible construction that's happened, but it's certainly not anything like most of the 70s or 80s sci-fi of what we would be like today. And I think maybe, and I was actually thinking about this earlier, and maybe it's because we don't have the robots aren't here. If we had robots to do all this construction, there'd be a lot more stuff going on. So I think that's going to help out. As you were talking about 3D printing, Ben, I was actually watching, is that earlier today, about the 3D printers. So one company in particular is called Icon, and they do 3D printing houses. So, and they're building a community in Mexico. And so this essentially is just massive 3D printer. I mean, the houses aren't massive, huge, but they're structurally sound. They're made of recycled concrete and stuff like that. So I think with the more ideas, and they're not the only company as well. I've seen different variations. There's one where it's on a circular motion, so the printer kind of does that. And there's ones where it's just one big one. There's ones where they shift it into different bits and then they put it together. So I think the more innovation like that we see in construction, the more the real world will start to change. And I think, when we start to see drones in the air as well, I think that will start to change people's perception of what's futuristic. When Amazon have rolled out their drones you know, because it would be hard to argue that we're not in the future, if you know what I mean. Once cars are rolled out, they're all autonomous. You got like, you know, crazy like drones all over the shop delivering stuff and hyperloops. You know, it's getting here, but it's slow. But he's very disappointed. Oh, just very quickly.
I like the article. I think it's right on the cusp there, but this might be one of these ones where we look back and we're like, oh yeah, at that time it hadn't happened yet. But a few years later, there were drones everywhere and self-driving cars and the internet, all the IoT things, all the connected devices, all this kind of your scale talks to your phone, talks to your door, talks to your thermostat. I think we're getting closer. I think that the author's right, but he might not be right, you know, 2 years from now, right in the future.
There's some good quotes in there, though. I think one of them is referring to an analyst. So this isn't the author's quote of the article, but look up from your textbooks. They tell the economists everything is getting better, except our ability to measure how much better everything is actually getting. And I think that's really interesting because, you know, you often hear people saying that life is worse now than it was. You know, people are saying, oh, it's better quality of life years ago. And like, wow, come on, like we're pretty gracious here. You know, mortality rates are much lower. You know, people are living longer. You know, fair enough. There's a lot more people getting generally offended about stuff. And so there's a lot more mental stress, I think. But in terms of, you know, living our everyday life, we've got it pretty nice, especially in sort of westernized countries, and you know, and so it's not to be taken for granted. And then the final one as well was that it said, but if we're not producing enough gold, it's important that we blame the geese, not the eggs. And this is wrong. Why would you do that? Yeah, geese can be vicious. Don't blame them. Like blame the egg. At least it's not going to bloody fight back. And if it annoys you, you can just squash it or throw it in the bin or something. But yeah, I doubt stressing the goose out's gonna help. So just in case you do have a golden goose that's stopped laying golden eggs, just don't stress it. Just stroke it or something.
Or try and lay your own eggs. You know,
exactly.
The geese even have their own video game, and they're angry geese now. They're very upset. It's a fun game. All right, we're going to move on to the exit question. There are spoilers ahead for Silicon Valley. I'm going to give you guys a half second here if you want to mute it or maybe skip 30 seconds or something. But we're really going to talk about the larger plot. We're not going to talk about the characters or what happened, but it's been a week or something. You should have seen it by now. Exit question. In the series finale of Silicon Valley, spoilers ahead, they develop an artificial intelligence capable of using distributed resources to crack all encryption. In the end, they put Pandora back in her box and hope that nobody notices. Josh Gagala, was their decision correct? Is it better to delay, destroy, and cover up the problem, or face it head on and wreck all of the world's encryption?
What a great question. Oh wow, I feel that if by destroying everything at one go, I mean the proper way to report a bug is to let people in the know on how to maybe fix it know first, hopefully come up with a fix, and then release it to the world. That would be the way to go.
That's a good strategy. In this one, they even had they managed to keep it quiet, but they even had Bill Gates sniffing around. He was like, something doesn't seem right. Seems like that technology should have worked, because it worked. It just worked too good. And it started cracking all the encryptions because once again, with the AI, when you're talking to HAL or whatever it is, when you say something's inconvenient or something's difficult, the computer just figures out a way around it. And in this case, that was breaking the encryption. Ben from Wales, your thoughts? Should we break all the encryption? Now you're muted. This new software. Everyone has to pay me $0.25 now.
Not yet. No responsible disclosure. I don't think you should break everything. That's silly. But I mean, we don't need to worry about that actually happening. By the way, people, as our good friend Stefan Snygrov, he'll tell you all about. If you check out some of his talks, he's Bitcoin, a professor of quantum physics. Was a professor of quantum physics until Bitcoin was more interesting to him, so he came to Bitcoin, which is another big bullish case for Bitcoin when you have people like that coming into Bitcoin. And he says that, you know, we're decades before we need to worry about that being a real problem of people breaking SHA-256. But I feel like I'm just like not answering the question, so I'll just move on. I'll pass it on.
Dan, Eve, can we break all the encryption?
Well, no, because obviously that would break Bitcoin, and we wouldn't want that. But I did read something quite funny earlier, which was that that quantum supremacy shouldn't be called supremacy because it's too close to white supremacy. So it should be called like quantum advantage.
It's 22 hours.
Sorry, that's Irish Moira telling you the time, but really, really slowly.
I'm thrown off by Irish Moira, but yeah, no, I it was such a great moment in the episode where they start to realize that they've connected all these computers together and they tasked it to the AI, and the AI is now using all these computers to break the encryption. And you suddenly pictured all the bank walls going down, all the stock market walls going down. Like Dan said, maybe even the Bitcoin network going down, because now you can just, have as many Bitcoin as you want, all those kind of things. It seemed kind of fun. There was a great classic episode of the Dilbert cartoon series where Dilbert screws something up and we lose all of our technology, and it goes back to medieval times and everyone's living in mud and having a good time again and being dirty, and maybe our lives would be simpler without all this encryption, like the movie Sneakers, too many secrets. So I don't know. I thought it was a great send off for the show, a huge what if in my mind. Following their software so closely, and then thinking about, well, what if they just shrugged their shoulders and let it run and broke all the encryption anyway? Well, really fun. So good show. Definitely check it out, and hope we didn't spoil it too much for you. Moving on to issue 4. Coinfloor goes Bitcoin only. Coinfloor, the UK's oldest cryptocurrency exchange, announced this week that they would be removing Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash, essentially going Bitcoin only. The firm cited engineering expenses and uncertainty due to Ethereum's multiple hard forks as the reason for its delisting. Similar concerns were cited for Bitcoin Cash, as well as the fact that the two coins compromise a very tiny fraction of the exchange's volume. Ben from Wales, I ask you, is this the beginning of a new trend? Is the world going back to being Bitcoin only?
No, not for a while, I don't think. And I'm not even sure Coinfloor have actually gone Bitcoin only, to be fair. I had a little look into this because I was sort of interested in it because I'd heard about them, but I hadn't really ever looked into them. So they were incorporated in 2013, so they are pretty old. And you can tell by the tagline on the website because it's like buy and sell Bitcoins 24/7, not Bitcoin, Bitcoins 24/7. So it's from that time when we used to have an S on the end of Bitcoin. But in earlier this year, they shedded quite a lot of staff because they were in some financial trouble. But then actually a lot of their staff moved over to another project called Coinflex, which is a sort of their Hong Kong arm of the company. And that's very much crypto. So although this part of the company, Coinfloor, has gone completely Bitcoin. I think what happened is in those heady sort of 2017 times, they made some bad business decisions, and then since then they've been trying to claw back. And it looks like they have, like they had a lot of debt, which they've kind of paid off. They also had a new CEO at the beginning of this year, which they've ditched in September for Mongolian Sand Ayush. So maybe they've just said, look, let's just focus on the thing which our company has done and has done well historically, and let's just do that. I don't know. I mean, they've been kind of, that arm has been forced to do that because of some bad business decisions. So I expect, no, I don't think I'm talking bullshit. I think, yeah, everything's going to go just Bitcoin only eventually, but we just have to wait long enough. As I said, it's like Wikipedia, it's the free market money killer. We want a free market money with lots of free different monies flying around everywhere, or do we want one like, behemoth Bitcoin, and that does everything really, really well and really safe and really securely? Ideally, we want that. So hopefully one day we won't need anything else and there won't be any other shitcoins, but that's going to take a while to happen. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. These exchanges switching over. And I'm not even sure Coinfloor have for now because they got Coinflex.
Dan, Eve.
Well, I know Obi from Coinfloor, and I think he's the founder, and it sounds like they've definitely had a lot of moves this year. The Coinflex thing was pretty big. I think they sold off, was the futures. I think it was the futures arm, wasn't it? But I think it seems like a sound move for them from a technical perspective. If they're not a big team, supporting huge Ethereum changes and being certain about them and happy with them, and it's a detraction from their main business. And if they're not getting a lot of revenue from Ethereum, then it makes perfect sense to focus on Bitcoin and make sure that they're able to smash that market and do it efficiently. But yeah, they're a good exchange. So yeah, all the best to them. It's definitely a good time to do it as well, because it's there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, about tokens still and other coins and how they're going to be viewed by governments. So I'm not sure how the FCA is creeping around other cryptos or anything, but sticking to Bitcoin seems like a kind of nice, an easier regulatory and kind of path of least resistance, I think.
I agree with Dan. I also got to meet Obi in London and we hung out. He's a good guy. And we actually kind of talked about similar things to this. It sounds like some of the other founders of the company were big fans of Ethereum or big fans of Bitcoin Cash, and that those people may no longer be with the company, having gone off to their own ventures. So now the core of the company's gone back. And if they're saying it's a very small percentage of their traffic, it's a very large percentage of their engineering resources, this seems like a good move for them from a company perspective. I'm not sure we can wave our flag and really say that it's Bitcoin only and that everything's shifting back and that kind of thing. But there have been little blips of this, like the Trezor thing, where you can convert your Trezor to Bitcoin only, or some of these other websites getting rid of their altcoins. It has happened, but it also goes the other way as well. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, we're slowly going the other way, unfortunately. I mean, the thing is, if you go onto any exchange, actually, any physical exchange, and go to change fiat, you're going to see a list of weird, strange currencies from around the world. It would be kind of a weird exchange if it just had one. I mean, an exchange is an exchange because it allows you to exchange, and it's a tricky thing, because I myself am big on Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin, but I think that people should price these other shitcoins, and maybe the price should fall, and people should be allowed to. I mean, it's not even allowed. It's free and open source. People can mix and match and do. I really don't think that in the future we'll just have one. I think that's ideal. I think it's ideal just to have one, but I feel that if anything, there will always be a casino of shitcoins out there, because it has this doubling effect. It is actually easier to go from 1 Satoshi to 2 than it is to go, to move Bitcoin from 7,000 to 14. That's a bigger move. But that's not a fundamental value that it's moving up. It's just speculators and gamblers popping and fizzing down there in this fest of crap that's bubbling away. So exchanges really need to be there to exchange value. Plus, there's also these arbitrage opportunities that other alts allow. You're trading Bitcoin for this, and you quickly jump out into this and this other thing, because you can get that for cheaper there. And people don't care what they're buying. They just know that it's selling more over there than it is here, so I can flip it. And so I think it'll be a long road until we have some homogenous thing. And I hope we never do get some homogenous thing, because something will be wrong. That's much bigger wrong if there's just one single thing. No matter what people think of shitcoins, I know that's an unpopular opinion amongst a lot of Bitcoiners, but at the end of the day, the market decides. If it was up to me, it would be nice to have just one big solid project, but yeah.
Moving on to the exit question. Which company would you like to go back to being Bitcoin only? Ben from Wales.
I don't really know. I'll say Coinbase, because that's the only one I can think of.
Dan, Eve.
I would like to see banking go to Bitcoin only. And I know that's an invalid answer, but I don't care, because it's not back to, but it's going to.
All right, banking to Bitcoin only. Josh Gagala, what company would you like to see go back to being Bitcoin only?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Banking would be fantastic. How good would that be? You know, oh no, we can't. You need to scan a QR code at the ATM.
And a company, no choice.
Yeah, Coinbase would be pretty solid. I mean, that would be a big move. It would be call back to the old days where it was like, ooh, Coinbase, nice.
Yes, Coinbase would be a great one. They used to be a huge advocate for Bitcoin, but the most recent thing is that they're going to give you $50 if you learn what Orchid coin is, and I don't know what Orchid coin is, and that seems to be they're making a lot of money, or hopefully for them, they're making a lot of money on the altcoin speculation market. I still think Coinbase suffers from the problem that they're always looking for the last business model. They're trying to do what Binance did last year, this year. That kind of thing.
All the email patent thing's big though.
Yeah, email patent, sending Bitcoin through email. Is that,
yeah, that was, I think that I read about that today. It seems like, you know, they're trying, and let's face it, PayPal, that's how kind of they kicked off, you know, the internet money, sort of.
What is this? What's this? What are you talking about?
Coinbase has a
Coinbase.
patent on sending Bitcoin through email. I
You
assume
can do that.
it's more complicated than just a link. I don't know.
No, well, because paywall, or LM Pay, they turned into LM Pay. Bootstrap Bandits project paywall, and it's now lmpay.co, I think, or .io. One of them. You should check it out. It's amazing. It's got loads of tools, loads of faucets and things you can make on it. One of someone who uses his, because he originally started out making paywalls, and then one of the ways in which someone uses his service is they send out their newsletter via email, and then you pay. It has a link, and then you click on the link, and then you pay the link, and then that takes you to the newsletter or something. But it's almost like Bitcoin through email. So I was just wondering whether that would impact that, because he's already doing that, you know.
It's lmpay.co, yeah.
lmpay.co. It's flipping rad, man. It's so flipping
amazing.
It's just full of tools. It's just like it's like a playground. Is it lmpay.co? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a playground for Lightning stuff. Check it out.
Well,
it's really cool. Yeah, I love it.
Doing it, but that doesn't matter to Coinbase. They're patenting it. They're controlling it. They want it. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that goes.
Maybe next year, if all turns right, they'll follow the Coinfloor and instead of Binance, and maybe they will go back.
That would be funny. My choice for this category, I'd like to see Purse go back to being Bitcoin only. I think they got some bad advice while the fees were really high. They accepted Bitcoin Cash. Presumably people weren't moving their Bitcoin around when the fees were really high. They felt they needed another option. Maybe come back, do the Lightning Network. Bitcoin would welcome you back if the discount thing still works. I haven't tried it in a long time.
Again, on LNPay, because he's got paywalls, there's someone selling gift cards on there, which is basically what Purse did, isn't it?
It's the same.
$150 Amazon gift card and pay only $120 with Lightning.
Oh, there we go. It's, if you don't move to the right network, if you make the wrong step, you go to Bcash instead of Lightning, a random website might replace you. I don't know. It's a tough business out there, especially if you can be replaced. Like Purse's main thing was an escrow. So if you could do an escrow, you could do a similar website. But moving on to predictions or story of the week. Ben from Wales, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Not a prediction, but what is pretty cool. Like I launched the LM Bits thing. That was fun, and it had loads of bugs. It was probably like not even been a more viable product really when I launched it, but it was pretty cool. Like it seems to have worked, and people have been playing around with it and experimenting with it. And I've already got someone who wants to make like started on the sort of Node.js version of LM Bits. So LM Bits was just like a wallet wrapper, so you can have kind of accounts. Like when I'm making all my gizmos, one of the things I get annoyed by is that I want to plug into my node, but I don't want to expose all my funds by just using one set of API keys. So you could have like your LND node, for example, and you can just create multiple wallets, and they've all got their own API keys, and you can just put a little limited amount of liquidity in it. So you could have like my faucet ATM thing could just be speaking to one wallet, just with those unique API keys, and it could do some other funky stuff as well. So that was cool. But what was also cool, but it's also distracted me now, so I can't really be asked with the LM Bit stuff. Is that Pine64 sent me, talking about free and open source, they sent me the first fully free and open source watch. This is a developer edition, so it's missing a back, so I've already started dicking about with it. But you can develop on this and program on this, and they're going to retail, I think in March next year, for $20. And I can tell you, because there's plenty of shitty Android smartwatches out there, but this thing, it feels like like an Apple thing. Like, it feels really nice. And I've had on one charge, this has been going for like 5 days already, and it still says I've got like, I don't know, a ludicrous amount of battery on there. And it's responsive. It's fantastic. So
$20, did you say? 20. Did you say?
$20. $20 it'll retail for. Their tagline. This is Pine 64. So the guys who make Rock 64, which that noddle is based on. And their tagline is about time. So it's about time, because it is about time. We need a free and open source smartwatch. Now, my plan is to fully Bitcoin this bad boy. Hopefully then when they actually release them, we'll just have software we can just flash onto them and fully Bitcoin them. So bollocks to those like $10,000 Bitcoin watches, hedonistic Bitcoin watches. I want to see like, block heights, and I want to have a lightning wallet and loads of other funky stuff on this little bad boy. So
nice.
Focusing on this, it's fantastic. Thank you, Pine 64.
Nice, very cool watch. Everyone should check that out when it comes out. All right, Dan Eve, a story or a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
A story of the week prediction. I'm so totally underprepared. This is the one thing I forgot to do. Okay, so I'll go for the basic. Oh no, I can't do it. I was going to go lower. I was going to be like, I'm going to go for Bitcoin. I'm going to say lower next week. And then I thought, when I was asked earlier, I was like, higher. So I'll just leave it as. Oh wait, no. Okay. So sorry, I knew what I was going to do. It's just like, so with the noddle coming up, that's the reason why I wore the hoodie. I've been aiming to get the noddle wrap in under 30 seconds, and I think I've got it to nearly like. I won't be able to like do it now for probably under 24, 25, but I've got it under 30. So I'll do it really quickly now. So sorry. Excuse me, peeps. I don't want to cause alarm. You miss monetary liberty in palm. Bitcoin Lightning, full nodes on an arm. Support the network. Run a node off. I've got another black box direct from non-lit to zone 21. I'm going to hold a lit, plug and play set, but even with the lit or over sweet unbox, and I might even model it. Not just a node, but a BTC pay server, Bitcoin pay processing, and a networking observer, upgradable, expandable, trusted to preserve, be a pillar for the network whilst you feed your Bitcoin further. I got 1 or 21 right before I hit the flux. Get involved and run a node. Start verifying blocks, not just mine. Stop attackers. Nodes also have out flux on the holders of the black box. Bitcoin core notes allowed, not just yet too technical. Try node or cloud. You'll also get financial source off into the banks you can forget. Before I go, please check the video on Network CryptoNet. That was definitely over 30.
God damn. Very good.
Every time
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, there is the fastest speaker in the world competition, that we can.
I'll give it a shot.
Brilliant.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Josh Gagala, your prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I don't normally do this, but my sister, Leah, Lea, Loveheart is her last name pseudonym. She's been helping people for years and years, from intellectually disabled people to children living on rubbish tips in the Philippines, to Down syndrome kids, to people that haven't spoken in years, to get them to come out of the shell and they start to speak using art, using creativity, painting, drawing, dancing. And she's unfortunately been diagnosed with a brain tumor halfway through her pregnancy. She's managed to hold on and give birth. You can see her there on the screen to the little one. But yeah, she is suffering from a brain tumor, and it's almost inoperable. They can try to get most of it out, but without fiddling in the junction box full of sight and sound and talking and stuff. So it's a tricky situation. She has got a Bitcoin address up there, and you can see how many people she's helped, because there's not that many randos. A lot of them are direct people that she's helped, have put, $25, $50, $100, and some up to like 4,000. But it's amazing to see all the support that she's getting. And I just want to say thank you to all the wonderful people out there giving the gift, so Leah can focus on recovering and not focus on financial problem, because she isn't rich. She isn't some sort of a whale. She's literally always helped others, and I'm just so blown away by the help. So if you do have a spare little thing and you want to do some good for Christmas, instead of buying some cheap Chinese crap for someone, you can give them a gift and say, hey, for you, I helped this person that's helped so many people over the years.
All right, thank you, Josh. And we put the link in the chat, and we've got it up on the screen here. Also, the link is on Twitter. Please support this GoFundMe at Twitter or at the link below. All right. And now let's see what else. What did I have to close with? I don't have that much to say this week. I got the new iPhone. I'm trying out the iPhone upgrade plan. So I get a new phone every year, but I rent the phone, so I don't really own the phone. So, it's ups and downs. Seems nice so far. Like Dan was saying, it's a little heavy, but I don't really find it that heavy. It's lighter than the old iPhone, has a nice camera on it, and a really nice screen. So I look forward to trying that out some more and seeing what it's like. And again, I use it all the time. It's pretty much my little mobile office. So if you use it every day, you should get a good one. Also, I wanted to thank everyone for donating to the Mad Bitcoins fundraiser. We're trying to raise some end of the year money to help pay off some of the bills that I've accumulated this year while I've been traveling around doing interviews. We're 14.5% towards our goal, mainly thanks to the Bitcoin price rising a little bit and a couple of large donations. So if you got $10, $20, or if you just want to buy the whole fundraiser for $15,000, and I'll stop talking about it, you could donate Bitcoin or Lightning to the QR code on your screen from Tallycoin right here. Also want to give a shout out to our Patreons. We don't have that many left, but thanks to the guys who are sticking with us, we have 18 patrons on Mad Bitcoins at $62 a month, and we have 10 patrons on World Crypto Network at $58 a month. So thanks so much to everyone who keeps this show going. I know it's not a big priority, but it is a good show, and we're glad to be back with you. We're going to try to keep the show going in the new year, try to keep some more new shows going on the World Crypto Network. Be sure to subscribe, give us a thumbs up and a share, and check it out in the link below. Ben's got some new tutorials on there. Maybe we'll get Dan doing some raps. Maybe Josh can do some stuff. But we got a lot of old videos too. We got a huge archive since 2014, all that kind of stuff. So check out the playlists. There's a lot of good interviews and stuff, maybe something that you haven't seen. So I think that's about it for this episode of the Bitcoin Group. They want Star Wars spoilers. I haven't seen it yet, but I think it's going to be like Return of the Jedi. So don't watch Return of the Jedi if you don't want any spoilers. And I also think my prediction, if I had to guess, I would say they're going to reset absolutely everything that happened in the second film. So it's going to have continuity with the first film, and a bunch of people are going to pretend that the second film doesn't matter and that everything is fine. Although I think we have more hope now on the secondary Star Wars films, things like Mandalorian. I thought Solo was pretty good. I thought Rogue One was pretty good compared to this new trilogy. But Jeremy got me all distracted talking on Star Wars. It's time to end the show. No more Star Wars. But I hope you guys all see it. And
Mandalorian is very good.
See it before it's spoiled. Yeah, Mandalorian's good. It's like a big Western, right? I can't believe they're going to have an entire show with a guy in a helmet that never shows his face. They get to the end credits of whenever the Mandalorian ends and the guy looks at you and he's still got the mask on. Whoa.
It's John Favreau as well, isn't he? He did Iron Man. So it's sort of fitting.
He did, and he did Swingers. John Favreau, quite a crazy story in Hollywood. The little movie Swingers, all those strange Disney reimagined films. He did 3 or 4 of those, and then now Iron Man and Mandalorian. Wow, amazing. He's an idiot from Swingers.
Elf, he did Elf. Because in the Christmas season, go watch Elf by John Favreau.
Season. All right, what's your favorite Christmas movie? I like Home Alone, Christmas Story, Die Hard. Anybody else? Josh, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Name one.
Oh wow, yeah, the Grinch. I don't know.
The Grinch is a good one.
Nice. I watched the short animated version. That was really nice, really good language. Dan, you got a favorite one you want to mention?
Okay, I reckon either Scrooged. Was it Scrooge or Scrooge?
Bill Murray. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And for kind of classic old school, I never see it on the TV. But Santa Claus the movie, the one with
where they do the loop.
Yeah, I think he's got like Dustin Hoffman in it. No, not Dustin Hoffman. What's his name? The bumbly English guy. I can't remember. It's got loads of people in it.
Santa Claus movie. All right, and Ben, one more. Do you want to mention anything else?
Oh yeah, what's his name? It's the guy from that really naughty radio series, isn't it? Where they talk. What's it called? They're just really horrible, racist, naughty radio. thing, the two guys, and then he was in Santa Claus the movie.
Yeah,
Sounds
was
like
it
a great idea.
not open all hours or no?
Bad Santa.
Oh,
That's also
Bad
good.
Santa. That's
That's also pretty
I
good.
watch that every year now.
Dudley Moore. I was
Dudley
thinking
Moore.
Oh, Dudley
He
Moore.
said he's a drunk,
Oh, that
and
is-
I would have had it right away.
What's that radio show with Dudley Moore and
Peter.
it was like
Peter Cook.
Peter Cook.
and
Yeah, the Peter Cook. They did like a radio thing, didn't they? Like an audio. They were like speakeasy tapes which people used to pass around.
They basically got really drunk in a
Derek
set
and
and just
Oh, brilliant!
yeah,
Okay.
Derek and Clive. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Jeez.
I just know.
Plankton eating. No.
But
I can't quote anything. It's too filthy.
Santa's
Yeah.
a good one. Actually, I read a great article just this morning about the Hallmark Channel and what a monopoly they have on Christmas. They just started cranking out Christmas movies, and they play nothing but Christmas movies, and they're all kind of generic and terrible, but people like them.
They produce them.
Yeah, they produce them. They just have it, and they've been cranking them out for years now. And imagine if you did 10, 20 Christmas movies a year. It's been 5 years. You now have 100 Christmas movies at your disposal. And what a schedule. They are just killing it apparently on the Christmas movie monopoly thing. And they're all like, the innkeeper's daughter and the shopkeeper's son and, little romancy things. But I don't know, this was a cool article and interesting business that they have going there over at the Hallmark Channel. So, but that's about it. We talked about a bunch of random stuff there. Enjoy. Jeremy's into Claymation Christmas, the classics, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty and all that. So enjoy your Christmas. It's going to be about 5 days, so we probably won't be back before then. We might do a little Bitcoin group on the 27th. That sounds pretty good. We might be back for that. Otherwise, we'll be back in the new year, hopefully ready to hit it really hard, get everything done in 2020, WC Tour 2020, all the other things just for you guys for motivation. If there's anything you want to start in 2020, it sounds really good to me. Like you want to start a business, or you want to start a streak or a podcast, or you want to turn over a new leaf. You can be like, I've been doing this good thing since 2020. I've been this business. I've been reading these books. I've been whatever the good thing you're going to do. I'm psyched about 2020. It's arbitrary. It's totally arbitrary, but it's fun.
If you ever wanted to start a glasses shop, it's a great time with 2020.
I've been waiting to start my eyeglasses shop.
Yeah, Vision 2020.
Vision 2020.
I can see it right now.
In 2020.
I can see it now. I like that.
All right, we're getting silly. So we'll talk to you guys again soon. Until next time, bye.